the corporation, corporate personhood is the act of giving a company, which is a legal corporation or entity, the privileges of a regular human person, such as the ability to own property, hold assets, contribute to politics, or influence legislation. With this change in the law, the corporation had gained legal status along with rights and duties, becoming an artificial person. After the U.S. Civil War in 1868, a corporation was created by members of the Bank of England called United States Company. The owners of this company decided that the employees of the United States would not be called employees, but citizens. To run this corporation would be a board of directors called the United States Government, and they would have a president just like any company. It would also have a constitution, just like the Republic called America, and people who signed up to be employee citizens would be given political and legal rights, like voting and owning land.
I think they did it when they got everyone to become a government employee. And then this way, where normally they would be our servants and we would be in charge of them, they tricked us all into getting social insurance numbers. These numbers identify us as a government employee. We're receiving benefits, as they call them, and therefore we are bound by the rules that bind all government employees. And so they've tricked us. We're a nation of people employed by the government, bound by the rules that the government makes, but only because we are employed by them.
However, there is a grand distinction between the United States Corporation, which is a company, and the United States of America, which is the geographical location and country. Today we live in a world where we are sold on the notion that our fundamental rights still exist, but there are times when we must wonder if this is true. For example, we can have the full force of the law brought down upon us over a traffic violation, income tax irregularity, refusing to fill in a census form, even growing or using natural substances. These offenses do no harm to another human being and in no way violate any individual's fundamental rights and freedoms. So we must ask, how did things get like this? The answer is that your fundamental rights and freedoms are still intact as a natural person, but you've been tricked into believing that you have to follow the laws created for the corporate artificial persons. This deception has only grown over the last 140 years. Some argue this period in history was the seed of what has grown into today's expansive modern legal system. Others believe that this was the beginning of the end for the great experiment known as the Republic of the United States of America. As a human being, you have guaranteed unalienable human rights. By virtue of existing and being what is known as a child of God, whatever religion you may or may not subscribe to, your rights come from the concept that you're a result of divine creation. This is supported by documents throughout history like the Magna Carta, UN Declaration of Human Rights, various constitutions, bills of rights, and charters of rights and freedoms of different countries. Unalienable, or unalienable rights, as in, no one can place a lien on your rights. They are yours to use freely.
Well, they certainly don't teach you about what the law is about. A lot of times there seems to be a more of a societal or a community conditioning where people that at 16 they go and they get their driver's license and it's a big deal for them, and yet they never ask themselves first, do I really need a driver's license in order to exercise rights? They get a social insurance number because they want to work legally in Canada, but yet they never study and understand the difference between, say, a contract for service and a contract for hire. So they're, to a large degree, they don't really teach much. It's almost more of a conditioning program that conditions you to believe certain falsehoods.
If you don't know your rights, you don't have any. And if you have to ask someone else what your rights are, you've just given them the power to tell you what your rights are.
I think it's less about plugging into the system than it is about having an easy existence where you don't have to think and take responsibility so much. You're just going along with the herd and it's easier to do. But it then allows them to claim the right to, half your money, half your life, essentially.
The heart of the Grand Deception, keeping us mired in the whirl of money, is keeping from us all the fact that almost every country operates with the artificial and natural person merged together as one. That means humans are being given the rights of corporations, i.e., no human rights, and artificial corporate persons are being given the rights and privileges of natural persons, more and more so. And the ones aware of this are profiting from it in a multitude of ways. The main schemes of control involve and depend on us being ignorant of our rights, ignorant of the contracts we're presented, and ignorant of our consent to these contracts every time we sign any form presented to us. One of the key aspects of creating a document, especially a legal one, is that you need words. Words in common use have their usual everyday dictionary definition. However, in law, words are defined to have a very precise meaning. No words in law are ever used accidentally. They were always defined either by legal dictionary, court ruling, or most commonly, within the definition section of an act or statute. Would you find it interesting to know that words can be redefined within a law or contract to give a word in the body of that law or contract a completely different definition or meaning, and that if you don't read the fine print or check the definition, you may just be surrendering your rights or property to whomever has authored that law or contract? The film Bursting Bubbles of Government Deception illustrates how many of these deceptions are perpetuated by our ignorance. Breaking the government down into people who use words on pieces of paper to make other people do things, the film discusses some of the etymology and definitions of important words in the legal system.
Well, application and registration and submission are pretty much the three words that they use along with the word must to get all their authority over you. The word application means to beg. And it is assumed that he who begs knows exactly what he's begging for. They know what they're receiving. They have acknowledged the authority to grant, and if it doesn't exist, they're willing to create it by transference, and they're doing it entirely voluntarily. No one can ever be bound to beg. The word submission again implies a voluntary action because it means to agree to bend to another's will, and the agreement in itself must be voluntary, or to abandon to someone else's discretion, or to leave to someone else's discretion, and that's a form of abandonment, and again, that has to be a voluntary choice. And the other one, registration, historically, was the act of a ship's captain, who would sign over his ship and all chattel contents to the harbor master for safekeeping. And so when you do register property with the government, essentially what you're doing is signing it over to them.
For example, you register your car with your state or province, giving them the deed of true ownership, while keeping the equitable title for yourself. Remember, the true owner, the registrar, has the deed. The legal owner, the registrant, is owner only in title. You may now enjoy and use the car, but a registered vehicle is required by law to be insured in most states and provinces, and a registered vehicle is also only legally operable by a person holding a valid driver's license.